just to start. Okay, good. Right. So to get started, just a bit of a chat about Glasgow and the importance of Glasgow as the place that COP's happening. Some of you might have been involved right at the very beginning where we were having these kind of discussions, which is, you know, what does it mean that COP comes to Glasgow? It feels to me, as a long-time Glasgow resident, I've been here since '97, that Glasgow is a special place to be holding a COP. If you think about what started here in terms of the Industrial Revolution, in terms of all of that shipping that was taking things around the whole planet to build up people's industries in other countries that came out of the colonial history that we've got in Scotland. What started here ends here. And this picture on the bottom right, you can see an aerial view of where the SEC is now, which is the dock on the left, and where the Science Centre is, which is the dock on the right. And that is exactly where these leaders are meeting. And we can draw inspiration from the past of Glasgow and our own social movements like the rent strikes, as you can see. And also that friendliness and that ability to make every event a really amazing experience for people, as you can see in the Celtic Connections, and as we did for the Commonwealth Games. And it feels like to bring COP to Glasgow is a special thing, and it gives Glasgow a special role in setting, let's say, the tone of things, because of who we are and our experiences. So that's just to get started. From Stop Climate Chaos's point of view, our plan since the very beginning was that we would be the local hosts for civil society, creating platforms and places so that global civil society can be as effective as possible. And the idea is that we as people in Scotland can't influence much of what's going on in the talks. I mean, nobody cares at what we've got to say potentially in Scotland. There might be a little bit of a platform to be had around some of the innovative things that Scotland is doing, but essentially it's an international conference and Scotland is not a party to it. So our place can be to create that situation where global civil society has the tools, feels well fed, feels at home, feels welcomed as much as possible. And also, most importantly, that we build the climate movement in Scotland and especially locally in Glasgow. And I think that is where this bit of the work can be really, really strong, is that we can help build the climate movement all over Scotland and not just in Glasgow. So, you know, building the Scottish climate movement is our priority. We want warmth. We want Glasgow to become a place where people feel the warmth of a Glasgow welcome. They feel a sense of place. They know they're in Glasgow. When I went to Madrid for COP, I felt like I could have been in any city in the world, and I didn't even see the city. I was just in my hotel room, and then I was on the underground, and then I was in the meeting. And how can we help people feel that they have that sense of place in Glasgow? How do we get the voices of those most affected by the climate change across as much as we can? And this kind of feeling of how do we link inside and outside? And this has been a real issue, I think, in previous COPs, and I felt it very clearly. When you're at COP, you're in a bubble, you don't know anything that's happening outside. And when you're outside COP, it's incredibly difficult to find out what's going on inside. So this feels like a way that we could achieve that linking inside and outside a bit more, certainly by how we get what's going on inside out into communities and into what's going on. So you probably already know that the SEC will be the blue zone, that is a badge holder zone, and the green zone will be a kind of open to the public zone where there's usually school visits and local Glasgow people will be able to visit it, and anyone who's around. And there may well also be visitors from the blue zone, although it is sometimes quite sort of, it's even a bubble in the blue zone and people with badges don't necessarily leave. So on the top of that, when we're thinking about where might live streams come from, so the idea for this is that we at the Climate Fringe website look for live streams of where we can draw in information into one's place and give you essentially a day-by-day account of what's going on, and you can live stream it to your venues. We've got obviously the blue zone and the green zone are highly likely to have live streams. The UNFCCC is already live streamed, and then we've got events going on in civil society spaces around the rest of Glasgow. And there's also spaces probably that will be managed by the Scottish Government and by Glasgow City Council, and they're likely to be live streamed as well. So to go into a bit more detail, we've got these UNFCCC spaces of official discussions, and they are utterly tedious and boring, and they go on for hours and hours and hours and hours, and it's all about brackets and dots and moving words, one space or two spaces, or deleting things, which there will be a live stream of, and you will be able to watch it. So we will have that live stream to our website. There's also talks going on in all the pavilions, and some of these are really, really interesting. So this pavilion on the top bottom left is the UK pavilion. There was quite a lot of interesting talks there about marine science stuff that's happening in Scotland. I went to quite a few events that were centred around Scotland. On the right, we've got the Indian pavilion. And so each pavilion has a series of talks. Sometimes they are led by civil society groups, because many of the countries bring delegations of civil society with them. And sometimes it's led by perhaps scientists or policymakers from those countries. But there'll be very interesting content in some of these spaces. There are shared spaces within COP. This is a shared space, which is a press conference that is being run by Friends of the Earth International from Indigenous leaders. And these events will also be live streamed. In the Green Zone, we don't know what the Green Zone will look like yet. We're yet to hear what's going to happen, but I've heard a rumour there might even be green zones all over the UK, which is something that I heard from the Climate Coalition last week. So we don't know so much what form that will take in Glasgow. And then there'll be a people summit or a social summit. And this is run by civil society organisations. It's going to be run by the COP26 Coalition. And it will take place over 3 days in some locations around the centre of Glasgow. The main one, which I've booked for them, is Adelaide's, and it's got fantastic streaming ability. And the idea is that all the talks there will also be streamed online. We are organising the Kinning Park Complex as our nerve centre for activities around COP. When events happen there, we'll make sure they're live streamed. And that's the Adelaide's, as I said before, we'll be live streaming from there. And then this is a terrible picture I just cut and pasted off the internet. I'm really sorry, of the hidden gardens. So I've just finished organising for all the Indigenous leaders to be based around the hidden gardens and St Ninian's Church next door. This is so that they can have a flame that will be burning 24 hours a day. And there will be lots of events that they want to do that will be hopefully live streamed, if we can, from the Indigenous leaders who will be based there. So there's all these sort of things going on. I'm going to come out of this now. So, okay, so that's the sort of background to where these kind of live streams might come from, and there's probably plenty of other spaces. And our idea was that we would have a volunteer or a few volunteers whose job it is to seek out all the live streams and what's going on when, and put the very best of the content onto the Climate Fringe website in the essential, like a Radio Times. So a Radio Times for COP. And it will be searchable by things like, it'll be just like our events listings are at the moment, but it will be for live streams, and we'll have it on a specific web page. And what you'll be able to do is say, if you're interested in transport, or interested in nature, or interested in, I don't know, science of climate, you could tick the various theme boxes and find out what's going on the things that interest you. And the proposal would be that if a community was interested, they could rent out their local village hall or community hall and hold a mixture of live events that concern themselves as a community, for example, local transport or local food or something like this that you want to achieve yourself. You could perhaps invite your local MSP to take part in it, combined with those international talks, and pick in the ones that work best for your own themes. And then you get that sort of taste of what's happening internationally, and then how that is relevant to your local community. So this is the idea. I'm going to have, we've already got we're starting to recruit for volunteers to do this. It'll be quite a big job for some of the pavilions where there were 46 different websites where I had to use to find out what was going on at COP25. So we've got this plan already to get volunteers finding out what's going on everywhere. But in addition, now we need them to look at if it's a live streamed event and then filter it onto that page. So I'd be really interested, I think we're going straight to Q&A just now. I'd be really interested to know any feedback from you or suggestions of how we can make this really useful to your own communities, and whether you think that's something you'd like to take up.
Hi, I'm Adele from Orkney Islands Council. and it's really interesting because we'd kind of come up with a similar idea, just not being sure what's happening with COP and travel arrangements, etc. So we're hoping to develop a local programme of events, or like you say, point community members in the right direction. But obviously time's limited and resources limited, so if there's going to be a larger structure that we can feed into, that's definitely something that would be really beneficial.
Well, that's really good to know. Yeah, so I mean, we'd like it to be as flexible as possible. So it's a kind of menu, and you can choose from the menu as to what you live stream and choose what you do in person. And I think that kind of combination, that hybrid of really being near real people and being able to have discussions with real people, but still have that element of the international connection, could be quite powerful, and something that perhaps in a normal COP situation you wouldn't be able to have when things are perhaps not as live streamed. Not everything at a normal COP is live streamed, and so I think this is going to be a bit different because everybody will be making sure that they're live streaming things. I mean, the other thing to suggest is, yesterday we launched Climate Fringe Week, which will be 6 weeks ahead of COP, 18th to 26th of September. And the idea behind that is as a space, so COP itself is, as I said, such an international event. It's hard to get airtime for anything that is our own, is Scottish, and we want to get the word out about. So there won't be space in the media, and you know, it's really very much a time when we're going to be going at full tilt with volunteering, hosting people at our hubs and things like that. But 6 weeks ahead of COP is when the leaders meet in New York, and actually an awful lot of stuff at COP is tied up beforehand, in meetings beforehand, and it's really just dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So during Climate Fringe Week, we're encouraging groups across Scotland to do events that are relevant to them and put it up on this programme, so that we can kind of showcase that Scotland is taking climate action, and Scotland has demands, and to join with people all over the world who at the same time will be doing a lot of things to try and put pressure on the talks in New York. So there's two, you could do both or you could do either, you know, it's a sort of smorgasbord, let's say.
Oh, sorry, Kat.
I'm going to suggest if people want to put any questions into the chat or comments on what you think might be useful specifically.
Hi, Kat, thanks. Can I, sorry, I'm hiding behind my screen here. Can I ask, in our community in Cardiff, I think there's probably quite a lot of people who really don't know anything at all about COP yet. And I'm thinking, you know, we're hoping to use the September week as in the build up to this a bit, but I'm wondering if it would be possible to have some kind of presentations that are helpful for people who are not yet engaged with this at all. So what is COP? Why does it matter? The real basic stuff. Because I think this is a fantastic opportunity for people who haven't yet grasped that climate change really matters, and to help to get that message over as well.
That's a really, really good point. We can do some more. I think we could probably do some really specific pieces of work that would be for groups who are doing something for Climate Fringe Week or for during COP itself. But I was just going to show you, I'm going to share my screen again. Oh dear, I can't share that. Hold on a minute, I've got to find the right thing. All right, share, there we go, share that. Such a mess, sorry, I've gone on the wrong. I need to go to the right place. Oh no, right, I can't, this is just getting too much. Where's my, I've literally lost all my tabs. Oh, there we are. Right, sorry about this. Okay, what I was going to show you is if you go to the Climate Fringe website, we've actually got some events, the climate conversations here. The very first climate conversation we did, so these are webinars that we recorded, and the very first one we did was an introduction to COP, and we had 3 different speakers, it was me giving a very basic overview, and then there were some policy people giving a lot more overview of what happens at COP and what to expect. and this one, An Introduction to Climate Justice, was about the concept of climate justice, what it is and why we should care about it. So those two are pretty good. We've got some more specific ones. This is useful for churches to watch. This was something about disability and climate. So we've got these, which are really useful. And then if people are wanting to perhaps educate themselves a bit, we've done a series of podcasts, which you can just listen to. And some of them are, so we've got one about Indigenous leaders at COP26, which is particularly interesting around what they're looking for at COP and how we can in Glasgow host them and look after them when they're here and help them do their jobs as well as they can. So there's a few resources there that I'd recommend looking at, but I totally think I agree that we should do something specific for groups that want to do events as a sort of intro. So you're thinking like a 10-minute intro that you could play at the very start of the event or something like that.
Yeah, or even something like that, or yes, even those webinars sound fantastic, and I'll definitely have a look at that. Yeah, something that will engage people who don't know anything yet at all. So it could be maybe an hour-long webinar, even around the COP and the basics of climate science and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm just talking off the top of my head here, but thank you.
Yes, that's great. We'll do that. And Veronica and Isabel from my team are both here, I think. And we're going to note that and make that happen. Perhaps get some experts in who can talk about those specific things. Brilliant. A couple of other people are saying intro is good. Excellent. We'll do that. So are there any more questions? Because I think then we were going to get into smaller groups. Is that right, Claire?
Yeah, we can definitely we'll pop people into breakout rooms, which I've got prepared all ready to go.
Fantastic. Good. Well, we can come back and ask a few questions after the breakout rooms as well. So this is kind of an open conversation. So I'll pass you over to Claire, who's got the next bit organised.
Oh, right. No, I was just I wasn't sure what our activity we were going to do for the breakout rooms. Pop people in, and you know what part of like COP. I'll just pause the record.
Right. So I'm going to share my screen. Right. So this is an extract from our website, which is how to get involved in COP. And Veronica can paste the link into the chat. So this is the kind of one-stop shop for all the things that you can do that will connect you with COP. Some of them are kind of more about how to be involved in the movement of people calling for ambition at COP. So that's part of being part of Climate Fringe Week. And I'm going to kind of go through a couple of these. Oops, I don't know how to go back now. There we are. So the first thing is Climate Fringe Week, and doing events. So these really matter. And if you're doing events in your local community, that is making a difference to your local community. But by linking it with something bigger like Climate Fringe Week or all the activities of the Climate Fringe, just put them on the Climate Fringe on our website, then you can make a bigger impact and you can join with others. And through doing this, we hope to be able to kind of show ministers in Scotland and politicians in Scotland, but also in the UK, because we're working in partnership with the Great Big Green Week, who are run by TCC in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. By joining together with them, we're going to be putting forward this great big call to politicians throughout the whole UK. So not only are we influencing Scottish politicians, but UK politicians and of course international politicians, because it's taking place during New York Climate Week. So anybody wants to be involved in that, you can go on our website and talk to Veronica. The second was that we've got this fantastic website, which is basically like a free Airbnb, or you can charge for people on very low incomes. You can charge up to £10 a night for someone to sleep on your sofa bed, or if you've got a spare room. This is because, as you know, hotels are so expensive during COP. If people live on the south side of Glasgow, we're particularly looking for people who can host Indigenous leaders. We've got 100 Indigenous leaders coming to COP who, well, they may or may not come depending on COVID, but we need to find them all a bed within walking distance of the Hidden Gardens, which is where the headquarters is going to be. So, you know, there's lots of exciting opportunities to be connected really with what's happening at COP and host somebody who's going to be regularly going in and out of COP and can kind of keep you appraised with what's happening over breakfast, this kind of thing. This is if you've got a community space within about an hour of Glasgow. We're hoping to connect people into a network of spaces that people can book. So COP, civil society at COP don't get allocations of office space or meeting space. And this is an opportunity for us to provide a whole network of spaces that they can book out, like for a meeting, for a strategy meeting, for perhaps early morning, like pre-COP meetings or hot desks. And this is, I'm afraid for the Orkney person, Adele, I'm sorry about this. This is like people who live in Glasgow. There's something coming that's perhaps more, I think this was the chat that was more about things that people could be involved in outside of Glasgow. But we're also making this green map, which is going to show sustainable places that people can visit. So like local community gardens, locally owned coffee shops, community enterprise restaurants or coffee shops and zero waste shops and things. So we're creating this map that will then be a legacy as well. And we want it to go on the Get Ready Glasgow website, Glasgow City Council, on the Visit Scotland website. So instead of Google and looking up, well, where's my nearest Starbucks, you could be going on this map and finding where's your nearest like community cafe or something like that, social enterprise. I'm not going to talk about that at the moment. I think there we are. So basically that's the website, which we'll post it up. And volunteering is another really key thing. And anybody who's able to, we'll be really hoping that you can volunteer and get the word out about volunteering. We haven't launched our volunteer ask yet. We'll be doing that in the middle of June. And we'll be looking for probably about 400 volunteers who can, between them, help with the man the spaces that we're hosting civil society at, help with the Civil Society Summit and all the work's going on there, and also to help with a march, which there'll be a big family friendly march on the middle Saturday. So we'll need loads of volunteers to be stewards and help us out with that. So there's loads of opportunities for people to be involved. And I'm just really sorry that for those that are further afield, it just feels like it's all happening around Glasgow and Edinburgh or the Central Belt. But for the home hosting, we're looking for people within an hour or an hour and a half of Glasgow, because people are being put into hotels in Edinburgh, in Falkirk, in I don't know, all over the Central Belt of Scotland. So, you know, anyone's welcome to take part in that. And of course, stream it to your local community centre. So there we are. That's all that I've got to say. So we have got 10 minutes before the end, or 5 minutes before the end. So I would be really interested to hear from anybody, either by email or now, if there's something you particularly connect with and you want to be involved in more, because then Veronica and I can follow it up.